Okay. I'm recording on my side, so just so
Awesome.
that you know right now. Wow, man. Some people just have these voices
Yeah,
for
no,
for presentation, right? I
yeah,
mean, and it's nice. It's just nicer to listen to the nice voice with the nice tone, and it's just more comfortable for the listener. I don't know
mm.
if you've noticed that on some of the podcasts. People are like, "I'm going to hold my phone over here and talk into it."
Well, that's always an interesting thing for me is like I find that over that sort of there's that over presented style as well, which
Mm.
is like hello and welcome to the, and it's like whoa, dude, like you're not even human anymore. It's like hi, thank you very much to welcome to the podcast. I'm like, there's also that kind of motivational speaker style thing that people do. They
Yeah.
like win awards for that kind of stuff, and I'm always like, geez, it feels almost like not real, surreal.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like welcome to the roller coaster, and off we go up and down, children, up and down. That's right. Lean to
Yeah,
the left, lean to the right. There we go.
it's very strange.
Hey, people who know me don't know you. So you're the Confused Dads podcast,
Yep,
or
that's me. That's me. Yep, I'm pretty confused. I actually I attempted to record a podcast last year, and I managed to get sort of a few episodes in, and then life happened. And then this year there was a drastic change in my life, in insofar as I actually lost my job through no sort of fault of my own, and it damaged me in a way where I'm not going to go back to the work that I was doing. So I'm sort of a full-time dad, stay-at-home dad, homeschooling dad, and I'm figuring out how to put my life together again.
pardon my ignorance, but I
Yeah,
remembered that we just chatted
yeah, we did,
before.
we did.
I just because we just set this up so quickly, like in the last 5-10
No,
minutes. I was
we
like, yeah,
did.
sure, let's talk about it. And then I was thinking, wait a minute, South Africa, wait a minute, that
Yep,
voice, it's all coming back, the
yep.
education thing. And I think the last time we talked, there was a giant thunderstorm.
Yes, you were going to be electrocuted, and we got disconnected.
Yeah, and as far as you were concerned, I was dead.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, and then life happened again, and then I sort of didn't, reach out again, and now I have again. So it's kind of just how I guess life works.
Oh, that's the way it should be. There are some people that I've connected with, and then you lose connection with them a little bit. But if you make the effort and reach out and reconnect, it's always a good
Mm,
thing. I think.
mm,
I think to do
yeah.
that with people. So you did a little bit of podcasting last year, and
Yep.
now you're doing the Confused Dads. And
Yep.
how well is it going for you?
Well, I think for me the motivation is there because what I'm trying to do is create an archive of my life that my son can go back and listen to. So that's the idea, is that I realized this whole finite. I got kicked in the pants really, really hard by losing the work that I sort of for the last 8 years built up, and being thrown out, my identity being stripped.
Yeah.
So I sort of went, well, if even the most secure thing which I thought I had was going to be removed, then life can also be removed from me like that.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah.
how awesome it would be for him to be able to go back and go, what was my dad like, and what thoughts did he have? And when he's my age, which is, I'm 34 now, and he's 5, but at some stage he'll go, cool, like I can always go back and listen to the presence that is. And I would have loved to be able to do that for people in history, like, or moments in history that you were like, wow, I'd love to know what that guy was feeling, or
Oh,
I'd love to know what, like, Christopher Columbus felt on the ship.
can
It's
you
like,
imagine if you had a podcast? What that would be
exactly.
like?
It'd be amazing. Or like,
Wow.
I don't know, the private diaries of Michael Jackson. Maybe not, but like that kind of intimate. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I've got,
It'd be kind of
I've got, I've got a book of the letters of Benjamin Franklin, right? And
okay.
it's the curiosity stuff. It's not any of the popular stuff. God knows where I picked it up, but I picked it up somewhere. Thinking that'll be interesting when I get around to reading it. And there are these stories about waiting on a boat off the English or Irish coasts for the right winds to take them to America. And sometimes they would sit on the boat for a week,
Damn.
waiting. And what they do is, like, there'd be no wind. So they'd get in a little rowing boat and they'd row to the shore, and they'd get some exercise and walk around, and then row back to the ship and wait on the ship for the wind. And people have no idea nowadays.
Uh,
You can arrive at the airport. You can jump on you book your ticket and you jump on a plane and you can fly across the ocean and be in a completely different land, and it's as if, oh well, that's just normal. But you look back through history, and it's like we've traveled kind of a long way to get here when it used to take like 3 weeks to travel across the Atlantic, basically.
Yeah. I mean, it's also like people waiting in line at a grocery store, and they get irate when it's a 2-minute wait, or their favorite rotisserie chicken has been sold out, and they sort of go insane, and it's like a 5-minute wait. Whereas humans have really had to struggle for real, and I kind of always think about that like life was a lot tougher, a lot.
Yeah, look, I live in this block of flats. I look out my window, which is just over there, and I can see, I live in a nice sort of green, lush area, central Slovakia, Central Europe, and just beyond the trees, there's a supermarket. Within 5 minutes, I can walk out of my flat, I can walk down the road, I can walk into the supermarket, I can pick up anything I need. What a luxury, man.
And I mean, that also puts into question my capacity to survive if I didn't have those things. Like, I could not live off the land. I'm dead. First plant I try to eat, I'm dead. It's like diarrhea. Dead. Bye-bye. I don't even know what to do. I don't know where to go.
Can I eat this or not? I'm not sure, right?
There's something in that, maybe without being too paranoid, with like people preparing for the worst, like these preppers, and there's something in that, being able to make fire. Like, I don't know how to do that stuff. Like, I'm dead, man.
Yeah, and, going out into the woods. Hey, that's that's part of what I was like before I lived in this part of the world. I was very much integrated into the systems that existed, and it's like so I'm from Britain, and Britain has very little like natural forest, right? So people just can't really go out and walk through the forest because they cut it all down. Like Scotland, where I'm from, is like 0.01% natural forest, and when they did have forest, they planted trees in straight lines, and the wind blew them over because people are stupid. So, and now I live in this country which is it's like 40% forest, right? Everywhere you go, you and people every day go from the small city that I live in. People walk out into the countryside. They start their fires and they roast their food, and they do that like on a daily basis. And the kids do that as well. And it's just like, whoa, these they'll survive, right? If there's
absolutely.
an issue, they'll be perfectly okay. Meanwhile, there'll be, I don't know, riots in the streets and people eating each other in other places. So there's a lot to be said for all the advantages of the modern world and modern technology, but balance is also good to have. And one thing that you mentioned, leaving an archive for your son or more children, if you have more children, that's the same for me, right? Why do I do it? I'm leaving a trail of breadcrumbs, right? And if people want to pick them up and to go with them and follow them, they're there, and the opportunity is there. And it's much better that opportunity be there than just be lost or left somewhere. And we have that opportunity now. So much of history is lost, and we form these images, perhaps, or at least I've done, like through watching old films or something like that. You get this picture of the past, but you weren't there, and you didn't really know what it was like. And it will be nice, I think, if future generations can look back and have some information, especially family, right? Bringing it home, especially family. Like, what do people really know about their family, right? What do people really know about their uncle or their great uncle or their grandfather or their great grandfather, and what stories were lost? What stories were lost that could have helped people, that could have educated people, that could have created platforms for learning that people could have built upon, but there was no trail left behind, and people just became names carved on stones and graveyards, and that was it. Yeah. That was it, really? I mean, as a race, as a society, as a culture, as people on planet Earth, we've got to do better. We've got to do better. I think we're headed in the right direction, but the point you made about leaving an archive, Yeah.
Mm.
So tomorrow is never a given. Tomorrow is never guaranteed. So we do what we can today, and we move on to the next step.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's an interesting thing because I think we're at the very beginning of what it will become, this connected world. We're at the start. I mean, you can see that everyone's so sort of obsessed with recording their little narratives, whatever those narratives are. And I'm also sort of weary of the sort of box that comes with becoming successful or big in some way. I notice how creators begin a certain way, and as they grow, they have to start forming a narrative that becomes sort of popular, and then it takes on a format that everyone else has as well. So I'm interested in the small creator, the guy who's not too interested in how do I bend the metric, like how do I cheat the structure so that I can be featured on Google. That's why I asked you about that, because that's a major achievement. But there's 1,001 people who'll sell you programs, ebooks, free ebooks, which is actually a funneling system to get you to buy rubbish ass videos that they made with like whiteboards, and like it's just stupid. And they all, and then they seem like down to earth people, and you're like, wait a second, this isn't down to earth. You paid to advertise to me. So there's that weird there's this weird like narrative that I'm sort of finding, and that's the new one is I'm a down to earth marketing guru guy who you've never heard, and like sign up to my program and then you'll be successful. And like you said, there isn't a quick fix, but I'm also sort of like, I'm not interested in being successful in the metrics. Like,
Okay. Here's an issue for you to think about. This crossed my mind recently. So I've been following what's happening on the Anchor forums for podcasts online, and there's this: let's all support each other. Let's all like each other's podcasts so that we all get a higher rating.
Yeah.
And that triggers something in the back of my mind. Right. Look, I'm not against people helping each other, but liking something that you don't listen to on a regular basis just so you can all push each other further up the ladder, even though you don't really know each other, that's not going to work, because it's easy come, easy go. And if you don't build a solid foundation, you're not going to have anything heavy that you can construct in the future, and it's all going to come crashing down as quickly as you would not like it to, basically.
No, I agree. But I think also at the same time, creating takes energy and effort, and there will be very little left of the original. Like, hey, this is cool. I'm going to put my voice out there. And it's like, okay, 5 episodes in and you're like, damn, I'm too tired to do that. So there's also the cream will rise, the best will rise. It just will, which, I think the internet's good at doing that. Like, no one's getting 50 or 60 million views on YouTube by chance. Like, you've got to have created something that's worthy of being seen. It's not always the case, but for most of it, like the best of the best are, they're there. They are there. The best podcasts in the world are pretty damn well made.
Yeah, I agree with that to a great extent. I'm a great supporter of people like Lewis Howes. I don't know if you know the School of Greatness podcast. It's that's something which has constantly raised the bar for me in terms of how you take good and make it great, and how you take great and make it absolutely amazing. And it's a great example for people about how to build their system with hard work and relatively organically. It's also about being in the right place in the right time as well. And in the same way, I know that a lot of people get to the top through the grind of the hard work. But let's take it back to parenting. Now, I did a parenting podcast last year, and that was my first like deep dive into podcasting. I'd done little bits before, but I said, like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do like 100 episodes at least, because that's my standard when I do a project. I'm going to do like 100 parts, and I'm going to see where that takes me and how far I get. And I did the research. I looked at what other people were doing. I checked out like say the top 10 video casts, because I made it not only as a podcast but also as a video cast, also as a live stream. And played around with the technology a little bit, because that's kind of what guys do in their free time a little bit. And I was, what would be the word, dismayed by the top the top 10 most watched parenting video series on YouTube. The absolute lack of content and direction and the focus on image and presentation was it was heartbreaking to someone who puts effort into working very hard as a parent, showing the realities of parent. In fact, if you go back to our live streaming podcast, you will have the kids, breaking down in the background.
I noticed that. That's cool.
Needing to go to the toilet. You'll have the teddy bears flying across the screen. You'll have me losing it with my son every now and then when he just gets overbearing. And there was none of that. Like it's we live in a perfect world, and this is our perfect parenting.
Where we all wear pastel colors for some reason, and like everything is so perfect.
No one's got poo on their hands. No one's got poo on their hands. What the hell? Yeah. What kind of parenting is that? If you don't have some, if you know
stains, lots of food stains.
Yes. There's shit stuck to the wall in the kitchen, and I don't know what it is. Right?
What's that stalactite? Brown stalactite. Very good.
Yes,
I agree.
Exactly. Why are there no knives in the knife drawer? What have they been doing?
What I noticed with your just looking through your previous podcast was like at the final stages of it, you were getting like 10 views on YouTube, like 15 views. It's like, what? And I'm thinking to myself, it is this kind of material. I think parenting or anything is not, it's not stuff that makes you forget yourself. You don't like get lost in some little narrative. I think it's hard stuff. And maybe that's not lowest common denominator stuff. Maybe there aren't thousands of people who want to engage with it. There probably isn't. It's probably so niche, and not even niche. It's like, no parent wants to hear more about parenting, even though they say they do. They'd rather go on Pinterest than like see how to make or pretend to make sort of cookies with sprinkles that match the color of their whisk. It's like, what the hell? But that's what's popular. So, yeah.
Yeah. It also the lack of men involved in parenting. In that area is frightening. Like last year, I was monitoring all this stuff. And I was monitoring. Okay, here's the next online conference. Let's see. Okay, there's 18 women and 2 men, and this is supposed to be some kind of balance on how we're bringing up our children.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, and not even couples. At least I tried to inject that into it. I mean, the couples aspect of parenting is huge, because no two people, especially a man and a woman, are going to have the same perspective on the important things, especially with bringing up children. The male aspect and the female aspect are 2 different puzzle pieces that should fit together, and it seems to me to be very much one-sided. So, as a dad and a person looking into that, it's like, whoa. Even if people are doing alternative education or even homeschooling, it's all websites.
It's massively dominated by women.
It's all websites run by women, and I hesitate to tell you the number of forums I got banned from simply because I was a man. And it was a female parenting forum, or it was a parenting forum, but they wanted it to be all female. They didn't want anything else in the mix.
Yeah, I think although we've come a long way, I always say it's very superficial in that now there's packaging of baby carriers where the guy is on the front with the denim, cool denims, and like the carriers also in denim. So it's like you can be cool and be a dad, but those things are mutually sort of exclusive. But you can be cool and a dad, but you can't just be a dad and be a cool dude. It's like there has to be a separation, and that's like dads can also now cook food. It's like, wow, that's so progressive. Like, my God. Yeah. So I think we've gone into something, but it's still a really very much there's prejudice, obviously, because it's a woman's world, and I think we're getting a little taste of what it was for women not too long ago. It's like it's a man's world in business.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I mean the general argument is the man is out doing his manly thing, whatever that may be, running a business or making money or working. Although he's not a lot of the time, in my experience, he's it's the presentation of it is imbalanced, and that's why podcasts like yours are absolutely essential, because the balance needs to be redressed or addressed. There need to be men putting themselves out there, and being in what is a vulnerable position. It's a vulnerable. I can't say the word. It's a vulnerable position to be presenting information to people on the net, because you're putting yourself out there, you're putting your name out there, and not everyone, even if you put out a good message, there's 9 out of every 10 comments are neutral towards negative, and then one will be like, hey, whoa, that's cool, with the exception of a few odd forums where people try generally positively to support each other. So it's a difficult thing to do. It's a brave thing. It's a brave thing to do, in my opinion. So yeah, the point you made was the numbers going down. Yeah, and this is just my opinion. I think the numbers went down because people wanted a different message from the message that we were delivering. They wanted a more mainline message, and we tried to adapt our podcast to that. And we didn't do I didn't want it to be all polished and cut up and edited. I was just like, this is us, this is it, these are the topics, this is what we're going to talk about. And we try to keep it real, and we noticed the view count going down with that. So then we moved towards, okay, let's make very short specific videos. Let's make a 5-minute about making promises to your kids or something like that. And that was slightly, but only slightly more well received. Now, who are people? So why was that? And to answer that, I think you have to ask, who are people listening to? And I think with any project, you need a name that people can hold on to. Now, this can be either the name of the project, or it can be the name of the person as a personality that's presenting the information. And I think that, look, if David Beckham did parenting as a podcast, it would be huge, but not because of parenting. It would be huge because of David Beckham, right? So
absolutely.
So there's a lot more about the personality of the person than there is about the importance of the topics that people discuss. So, I mean, there must be about like 5,000 podcasts about basketball. I mean, how much can you talk about how tall the players are, or how many times they bounce the ball, or look, he passed,
Yeah.
And I get it that every game is different, and that's what makes sports exciting. But there's more important topics, and parenting is one of those key things that no one is ready for, no one is prepared for, and most people have to wing it, because find a dad who's read any book about parenting before they become a father. You're in the top 5%.
Yep. And also, there's also a strange, hyper reality where you have these parenting experts. These people scare me deeply because they position themselves, and that phrase, position yourself. It's like, oh my God, help me. It's like, what made you an expert at being a parent? And oh, by the way, your child's in a mainstream school, has done drugs in the last 6 months, and you're not at home because you're delivering a keynote which you're overcharging across the country and saying how great. It's like, but no, I'm imperfect, everyone. It's like, God, that sort of, like you said, that over-polished insanity, that's not parenting either. So how do you strike a balance between, like you said, there's obviously the personality, and I agree with you. I think if you look at the top YouTubers, it's a lot more about who they are. Like Will Smith just got into YouTubing, and he's got a massive audience because he's funny and he's a cool dude, and like his content is beautifully made because he's got, a team following him around, but he's still a cool personality to watch.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, the number one YouTuber for a while was I don't know if he still is, was PewDiePie.
Yeah, man, 60 million subscribers.
Yeah, and of course, you know, I learned about him from some of my clients, and some of my younger clients were like, you know, you gotta check out this person. I'm like, well, I guess okay, you know, I'll have a look at this, and I was like, he's got something.
And you watch his videos and you're like, what the hell? I don't understand why. See, you know, there's 60 million people are subscribed to him. I don't necessarily understand it, but at the same time, well, it's just him, really. It's just him.
I think that I do understand it, because I look at it this way: the fact that I don't understand it means that I'm missing something. Because all of these other people understand it and watch it, and they get something from it. It was the same with Snapchat, right? I had a group of young people that I was coaching, and playing with their mobile phones. This is, say, 5-6 years ago. They were playing with their mobile phones, and I was like, oh, you know, what applications are you using? What are you doing? And like, oh, you know, we're using Snapchat. Oh, Snapchat, what's that? They explained it to me, and I scratched my head and couldn't figure out why this would be important at all. And so I checked out on the internet. It was worth $2 billion. Right? That company was worth $2 billion, and all the young people were using their application. And so again, my approach was, okay, I have something to learn here, because you know that's how I approach if you know, scratching my head trying to understand why something is the way it is. I think that everything exists for a reason. There's a reason for everything that happens. Whether you understand it or not, there's a reason. If you look at science, nothing happens without a reason for it. You know, there's no action without a reaction. You know, and you know, there's what I call, you know, the domino effect in life. One thing will lead to another, will lead to another, will lead to another. And so maybe you're only seeing part of what is a bigger picture. But definitely, I think that it's definitely worth looking into things a bit more. It doesn't mean that we're going to understand it, and there are still elements of those things where I still scratch my head and go, okay, I don't get it, and I'm not going to get it, and I have to live with the fact that I don't really understand that. Right, okay. But then you learn, then you learn to listen to people, and the kids got it. The adults were confused, but the kids got it. The kids all got it, and that's crazy because they're the future.
Yeah.
They're the future, so it's worth taking the time to listen to them, because the same way that we were different from our parents, we, as we get older, become different from the next generation, and the speed at which things are changing is frightening. Yeah.
Yeah, it means there's multiple generations within one generation. It's not even a one next generation. It's like multiple generations have happened within the span of one lifetime of a generation. There's like 3 or 4 gaps already. It's like, what the heck? What's going on here? The music really is worse. This isn't like, you know, you sort of wonder, it's like the grandparents who said Elvis was the devil, and you're sort of thinking, you know, modern music, you're thinking, hey, I'm starting to say that this stuff sucks. And I'm wondering if it's just the continuation of the human, you know, is that just normal? But it has evolved and jumped in a very massive way. Like it's become so much more abstract. It's like, whoa, okay.
Have you heard this music called break? One of my younger clients, I asked him, what do you do at the weekend? And he said, oh, you know, I went to this break festival. Break? What's break, right? It's like break dancing. Said, no, it's break music. I'm like, what's that? And he said, well, it's like 160, 170 BPM. And I'm like, you what? How'd you dance to that? And it's like, well, you just kind of throw yourself around like really quickly, and the music's like.
Oh boy.
And that's their Friday night entertainment. So you know, that's
the one where you just go, I don't get it. I'm okay with that. I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, but no, thank you. Yeah, exactly. You just realize that there's something that you don't get, you're not gonna get, and you roll with it.
So then, in terms of your narrative, I mean, your podcast that you created, I mean, if you could change it now with the idea that you wanted to reach a bigger audience, like how would you see it if you had to say, why aren't people getting what I have to say, and how could I say it in a way where people could? What do you think was the most major? I mean, obviously they're huge things, but what would be the one thing that you would change? To sort of see if you could reach a bigger audience
with parenting as a specific topic.
Yep.
Okay.
Because it's not a cool topic. It's really like it's a grudge purchase. Like a parenting book is a grudge purchase for most people. School, paying for school fees, having run a school, I know this. Like people are like, school fees, but they'll never say that about their car repayments. It's like, I love my car, but it's like, school fees, and stationery and uniforms, and it's a grudge. It's like nothing about it is cool. It's like a podcast about the insurance industry. It's like, good luck. Like, good luck to you, dude. I hate you already.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's approach it from the insurance perspective, right? We know that if we were to produce a podcast about insurance, we would immediately be limiting the number of people who would be attentive to that topic.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't do that. We would include insurance as a sub-subject of information that was contained within something else. So parenting, I think, is a result of what you do as a parent. So in my mind, is the practical way to approach it is completely avoid negative terminology. Start with the start with the positive language and the positive approach to things, right?
Yes.
But I don't mean that in an overly crazy sense, but that this is me. I'm a father. These are my experiences. Look, welcome to the real world. And I think you've partly already hit on that with the title "Confused Dads," because that is far more of a grab than parenting, right? Because there's a yawn factor to parenting. Right?
Big time.
Yeah. So the way to approach it is to approach it from a different way and realize that the same way that you can find many areas of sport that are analogies for life. Yeah, you can take a football match, or I talked about basketball or whatever, and you can make analogies, teamwork, strategy, planning, support, and you can bring those in to the aspect of sport there, and therefore educate in that way. And one of the things that I know I'm not directly answering your question, but I'm trying to give context for this, right? So I worked in the music industry for 8 years, and what I recognized from the music industry, and you have to think like there's so much music, there's so many people involved in music, there's so many different styles and genres, and people are always creating, and you already mentioned like Will Smith, who was he was involved in music as well, and there's an audience there who are prepared to listen to a message if it is presented to them through what they understand, and what they understand is music. And so that gives people a platform. And you think of all the people who have lived relatively successful lives because they've written a few songs, or they've played guitar on a few tracks, or they've been a backing band for somebody, or they run a music club or a venue, and then you begin to see that there's a giant support network of music shops that sell instruments, and people who go on the road to tour, and the entourage, and the photographers, and the magazines, and you start to see a whole industry that's built out of this one thing of music. Yeah. And I think that part of the secret is to find what people are already interested in and integrate into into that, all the areas of development and learning. And I don't think there's one way to do it. I think that all success is the result of three things: time, place, and people. You need the right people to come together in the right place at the right time. If you get 2 out of 3, it's great, but it's no go. And getting those three things to happen at the same point in time is complicated. It's difficult. So, for example, I was approached last week by a larger podcast audience for who I don't know. I can't give the name because because I just can't. But let's just say they're a big podcast in America who have a large audience, and they're doing a lot of male-orientated topics, and nothing in any way connected with parenting, but let's say connected with men being men, which you kind of take a step back from and think, right, well, okay, just keep
beard oil and axes.
Something like that. And there's a market, there's a giant market for that out there. And they've just picked up huge sponsorship from other things. And if I were to integrate what I do with what they do, which is what they want, I then have an audience for things like parenting and for things like personal development and motivation and helping people. Although that's not the road that I would go down. Here's another example, right? Let's say you're a football coach, right? And you've got these 20, 30, 40 young men that you're training to prepare for things. That puts you in a position to communicate to those people a very important message, which you can do in that way. And you can present the parenting to them. You can be a good role model to them. And so sometimes it takes what you're doing. It's like, okay, this is parenting, and I'm just going to drive forward with it, and I'm going to hammer home the parenting message in this way. And sometimes it takes coming at it from a completely different perspective. Because let's take someone like any well-known musician. If they were to get up on a platform and say something about something, everybody would stop and listen to what they say. And you could put out like 1,000 nuggets of golden pieces of information for parents. But this one person who's written one hit song is going to stand on the stage and say, da, 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 and everyone's going to remember that.
Yep.
And everyone's going to forget what you do, which is the horrible contradiction that exists. It shouldn't exist, but it does exist. And how do you deal with it? How do you deal with it? I don't think you deal with it. I don't think you act against it. I think you realize that it exists.
Absolutely.
And integrate what you're doing into what already exists. Integrate that into what people understand. And again, have a long-term view of things, and be like with them. So my business podcast has. As I checked in on Google this morning, I was like, I wonder what happens if I search in Google. I'm like, the top hit on Google for my business podcast, because I've been watching it just grow, and I've been thinking, where's this growth coming from? It's like I'm not really promoting it, so somebody somewhere must be sharing it with somebody, and they're getting it and sharing it with somebody else, and so I called my partner and I'm like, type in Business Coaching Masterclass to Google and tell me what the top result is. And they're like, it's your podcast. I'm like, that's ridiculous. I'm like, that's absolutely ridiculous. How the hell did that happen? So you're looking for strategy? I don't think there really is much strategy except keep swinging.
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking like also because you're doing that on a daily basis, right? You're putting out every single day.
Daily is key. If it's not a part of a person's habit, forget it, because people will forget it.
Because, I mean, that already is a massive differentiator. Is like, I don't know anybody who's putting audio out daily. Like that's a hell of a massive task. Even if it's you're tired and like, it sounds, even if you sounded tired or whatever, like there's no way to create perfection in that dailiness. And that's kind of cool, because that's in line with what you were doing last year, where you wanted to come across as real and raw. Like if you do something every single day, there's no way to sort of let that thing catch you. But like you say, building it into your life. And I'd like to know, what is your schedule? How do you incorporate? When do you record? Do you have a set time? Just as an interest thing for me, like how do you handle the daily workflow?
First you make the decision. Do I want to do this? Then
do I want to become suicidal?
Yeah. Okay. It's all those elements of motivation. You look at your day. And you approach your day with intention. What is my intention to do with this day? What is my intention to do with this hour? What is my intention to do with this activity? And I looked at my day. I looked at when I have most energy in the day, which for me is the morning. Now, some people have it in the afternoon, some people have it in the evening, but I'm a sort of get up and get it done person. So I set my alarm for 5 o'clock in the morning. I get up, I eat breakfast, I drink coffee, I spend 1 hour typing into my computer, and then I hit record, and I record. And that's how I do my basic business masterclass. It takes me about 1 hour 15 minutes, which I consider a very small portion of my day. Now, what are the benefits of that? The benefits of that are, if you write every day, your writing will inevitably get better, or you in fact should change and go and do something completely different, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of the aim. And that's how I approach it. The second thing I do is I go everywhere with this. I go everywhere with a headset and a microphone, and I try to have as many important and interesting conversations with people. And I say, do you mind if I record our conversation? Because I think it's important and interesting. And I do this I also do business coaching, so I do this with my clients. And I do this with other people, and I record as much. And so that means sometimes at the end of the day I have 3-4 hours of material, which is you can't really use, but I take a portion of it, I cut it where I can cut it, and I throw it up on the net, and I just say, that's it. That's it. So you squeeze it in and around here and there, whatever it is that you're doing. You make it a part of your daily life. You intentionally set out to, as you with the archive, to make a record of things that are happening around about you, because this facility of podcasting and recording videos and doing this is a way of self-reflecting about a person's own improvement. And that's essential. That's absolutely essential. Because when I started 8 years ago, you go back 8 years on my YouTube channel, there are videos and they're absolutely terrible. And it's good that I can look back and say they're terrible now. It's good. That's progress. It's like when I just published my first business book. And when I got to the end of the book, I looked back at the start and I thought, oh my God, that's terrible. And then I thought, that's what you want. Mm-hmm. You want, at the end of the process, you want to be able to look back and go, there's progression.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you start anything, it's rough. Yeah.
Mm.
And you just plug away at it. And for some people, like there's people on the internet, I'm sure you've seen on Anchor podcast forums, people like, well, I've just posted my first episode and I'm waiting for it to appear on iTunes, and when is it going to appear on all the other forums? It's like I'd posted like 40 or 50 episodes before I even checked which forums it was going out onto through that system. I was like, I'm just going to put it out.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to wait for a reaction, because that's not what I'm here for.
Agreed. I think the motivation or the reason for your for your doing it is instrumental in build a momentum to it. If it's because you'd like to get some content,
momentum is such a key word. It's such a key word. If you can't build any momentum, then you become exhausted.
Yeah, or if you do it for the wrong reason, then if you do it for a reason that doesn't really resonate with you, then you're not going to continue because there's no real good reason to do it, I guess.
Well, look, it's always nice to get positive feedback from people, but you can't wait for that on the internet the same way.
It can't be the reason to do something. Positive feedback can't be your driving force. Or for me anyway.
Well, then if you dig down and if I were to dig down into what I've done, and somebody asks, what's that? What's driving you deep down inside? Part of that is the archive, but I would describe it differently. It's legacy. It's legacy, because what are you leaving behind? There's 1,500 videos on my YouTube channel, right? Yeah. And that's you build and you build and you build, or it's like you plant and you plant and you plant, right? And there'll be a forest, but you might not live to see the forest, right? You've got to realize that. It's like there's you find these motivational stories about people planting the seeds, and they die, and years later people are walking through the forests, and I think that's the way to view it, right? We've and here's the other thing. You understand about education because you've been in it, right? With all the schools and all the money and all the resources and all the administration and all the training and all the support and all the technology and all the buildings, etc., 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 that exist, I was able myself to build my own private school. Myself, one person. Who was my competition? Well, the first school I built was a language school. Who was my competition? My competition was every other school in the country, with all of those teachers and all of those administrators and all of those resources, and everything packed into that. We're talking me against hundreds of thousands of people.
The monoliths. Yeah.
Yes, and they couldn't compete with me. I had more students in my school than I knew what to do with at one time, right? And that's the power of one. That's the power of one.
There's also there's an agility that comes with that, being able to react to changing circumstances within the hour, as opposed to let's write a letter to head office and see what they say in the next 2 years if we should change this policy, which might or might not. There's a level at which you're more of a, I suppose, an earlier cowboy slash not even a cowboy, but what's that, like a pioneer. I mean, when you're on your own, you can decide that road. I find myself sort of slipping into questioning, what should I do based on what other people are doing? And everyone keeps doing that, like I was saying, then the narrative becomes sort of overlaps, and then it all sounds and feels and looks and tastes exactly the same. It's the same type of vanilla. Everybody's the same lukewarm vanilla, like you said with the parenting stuff. It's all ring-lit mothers with their hair straightened with perfect makeup. It's like, wow. Why are your eyes so glowy? Like, what? Well, that's not
like little glitter. They put little glitter around their eyes, and
yes, and then it takes on that form, and then the sort of cultural norm becomes that. So anything else becomes abject. Like your stuff would be abject. Like, what is this dude doing? Like he doesn't even have makeup on. And then
he hasn't even put a T-shirt on, right? He's just standing there half naked talking about
just putting your own voice and narrative out there without, like you said, you put out stuff without even worrying about where it was going and when it was going there, because you had a truth that you shared.
Yeah, I think you have to, if you're in it for the long game, you have to do that, right? And I think real credit comes in understanding that we're here to prepare things for the next generation. That means we're not going to see what's coming. We're not going to see, and it's not our problem. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we do things the best we can. We prepare people the best we can, and we do what we can where we are with what we have, and we just hammer it out. You can be Joe Blogs nobody now with a mobile phone, and you can stick a microphone into it, and you can have a podcast, and this scares the living shit out of the establishment now.
Yeah, of course.
because now people like CNN and Fox News and the BBC have to compete with people who are passionate about what it is that they're doing. And to a certain extent, it might be that the mainstream is dead already and we just don't know it, because there are so many people so more passionate and so prepared to do what they're doing for nothing.
Yeah, that's scary.
Than actually as a job, and there's nothing more powerful than passion in what it is that we do. I mean, look, the BBC could have a parenting program every day if they wanted, but they don't, and that's a choice. And that's a choice. It's a choice that they make. They'd rather have 3 hours of football or whatever other relatively mindless thing that they can put on. And I'm not saying football's mindless. I'm just saying that it's not the only option.
Yeah. No, I hear you there. I think what's really interesting is that a lot of the big companies, even in South Africa, we have an incredibly underdeveloped audio side of things. Like podcasting is zero here. Like they had one of the universities try to put together like a pod meet, an annual, and like literally four people within a hall. So no one really understands the medium, and they don't see that audio will be. I mean, cars now have their own streaming services built into them. Like the radio as a format is sort of like, God, you can't tell me what to listen to and when to listen to it, and you sure as hell aren't going to advertise to me. Like, that is sick, and that kind of thing is, and yes, it lags in a country like ours, but all the big guys are sort of just basically putting on their same radio shows cut shorter as a podcast, so to speak. But that's not the strength of the medium. The strength is the nicheness of it. Like you can really go and find the cheese statue making grandmother who shares her interest in sculpting cheese. Like, that's a real thing. Crocheting, like, oh my God, there are podcasts out there with thousands of people who are interested in it. So that's the power of it. It's quite cool that that is such an open, it's still so open. It's like a land grab. Whoever creates now sets the tone or the platform, which is kind of cool. Like you say, you might not be able to have the audience, but you've already built a body of work, and that sort of gives you credibility in your next pursuit. I think that's probably what, I don't know.
Well, I think if you make it part of your life, there doesn't have to be a next pursuit. It becomes a holistic approach to the way that we grow. And that as we learn, we share what we learn and we move forward. And I think that's the way to approach it. It's the people are saying, like, okay, I'll do a little bit and see what the reaction is, and I'll see if people want more. I mean, there's a way to do things like that as well. I mean, look at the simplicity of some business approaches. Okay, A/B marketing. Okay, how many people want A? How many people want B? Okay, everybody wants B. So how many people want this version of B? How many people want that version of B? It takes time to go through that, but that's one very simple process that people can go through. Let's look at another business, perspective. Who's the avatar of your average listener, right? What are they? Are they 15 to 20? Are they 35 to 45? Are they male? Are they female? What's their job? How much free time do they have? So, I mean, if people really want to market and they really want to sell, then they can drive down those lines. And I'm aware of those because I work with people who work in those industries, but I'm personally not interested in that because I see myself as a creator. That's my perspective of myself. I'm a creator. I create content. Look, some people out there would be like, I do one podcast a month because I can put out 3 a day, right? And people will be like, oh, well, and I know that the more you produce of something, the lower the quality is perceived, right?
Yeah.
And that's a given. But from my perspective, I'm just like, I don't care, right? But look, I do care about quality. If you go and look at, what's on my YouTube channel, you'll find everything is polished to a certain extent. There are a few like little bits and pieces here and there, but you just drive through it, right? You've got to enjoy what it is that you do, and for me, it's communicating with people like you, people who are really passionate about their subjects, people who are searching for they're searching for answers, right? I think we're all I think we're all looking for different answers to different kinds of problems in life, and these platforms and forums give us an opportunity to get a little bit closer than previous generations did to that kind of information. There's no reason why anything should not work in the modern world. I know we're all human and we all make mistakes, but think about it. The same way that that we've been in contact with each other and asked each other questions, we can go into other forums, we can communicate with other people, we can take steps in the right direction. And, as you get older and you learn more about the internet and systems, and you learn about people's marketing and strategies, you learn to say, no, I don't think that's not the way, I'm going to go this way. And trial and error.
Yeah.
Right? And like I said, I consider the parenting podcast is commercially, for me last year, was a commercial failure, right? Because, the number of people who were engaging and involved, it peaked for the first couple of weeks at around 1,000 people on Facebook watched it, right? And then it just gradually went down. Do I consider that a failure? No, because I learned so much.
Yeah, you already invested time and energy into refining and understanding the medium. I mean, very few people, there's a lot of people who talk a lot of smack. They have a lot to say, but they've never done 100 episodes of anything, let alone. So there's merit in actually doing as opposed to wishing to do or doing something and saying, well, I'll wait for a reaction before I do anything else. And it has to be a positive one. Otherwise I'm out. So that's kudos. I mean, kudos to just do. I respect anyone who just does. It's a tough one to actually do.
Well, that's part of the psychological approach. The psychological approach is that it's going to be done no matter what. Let nothing stop me. Because why? Why should I let anything stop me from doing what it is that I want to do? As long as I'm not hurting anybody, you've got to approach whatever you approach with that kind of attitude. You've got to approach it with the unstoppable perspective that I'm going to put so much energy and I'm going to put so much momentum, I'm going to put so much enthusiasm into what I do that it can't help but affect other people when I do that in a positive way. And the crazy thing is, you never know how close you are to making it work.
Yeah.
Who knows?
You never know what that final little cherry on the top just that tipping point. You just don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you don't know who connects to it in such a way that causes new momentums, new branches. You don't know how it's going to play out. I'm
going to get up tomorrow and do the same thing I did today, relatively, right? It's not like I do exactly the same thing every day, but I've got a strategy. I've got a plan for how I live my day. Now, whether or not I'm at the top of Google searches, it's absolutely irrelevant to me. It's absolutely irrelevant. That has not changed anything at all. It's just a curiosity that has occurred in the process. It's like, okay. Not only that, but on the first page of Google, I'm listed 3 times if you type in Business Coaching Masterclass. 3 times on the first page of 2 million hits, right? Yeah, that's freaky. Yeah, it's wrong. It's just wrong. It's just wrong. I shouldn't be there. And that's, I think that's the way to approach it. That don't let the external world too much affect what your internal drives are to do what you want to do. And if people do a little bit and they've had enough and they feel they need to finish or they've run out of energy, that's okay. Take stock, look at what you've learned, look at what you've understood, look at what you can take to the next level, because there's always another level. And build on that. Some people will do, 10 episodes of and it's just, I mean, please, people who are on the internet going, well, I've done 5 episodes of my podcast, and I'm wondering what it's like. What have you proven to the world by doing? It's like saying I've played 5 games of football in my life, and no one signed me to a major team. It's like, it's not your podcast that's interesting. It's your life.
Yeah.
Become an interesting person, and people will be attracted to you.
No, I hear you there. That's cool, man. I totally that was reaffirmation for the kind of mindset required to exactly that. It just reaffirms it for me, and I think in this period of transition where my reality was shifted so drastically, where I didn't have any straw to grasp, where schedule was out the window, there was no semblance of any kind of sort of flow. Now it's slowly I'm coming to terms with that, and I can feel that the day does have its own little flow to it, albeit not regulated the way that it was in school, but that I'm allowed to take hold of that opportunity rather than go, well, fuck, I'm still waiting for them to phone me back and say, we've made a great mistake, come back to your school. Because it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But there's a very real part of me that goes, at some point, like, someone is going to go, hold on, this was a very bad idea. And like, let's just go back to the way it was. Even though I can never do that, a part of my brain goes, but geez, like 8 years of that, you don't just quickly in 2 months go, my body's not used to all of that stuff. But I can give myself the permission. It's almost like cheating on someone. It's like you feel like I'm cheating on those 8 years of hard work. Like if I do anything with that same gusto, I might get hurt again. Or I'm never going to, I'm going to give up and sort of burn the ex's photos. That's what I'm doing, like throwing away all the old stuff. And I can allow myself to do that now. I'm getting to that stage where I go, just grab it again, grab it hard and go again. And it just takes a little bit of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you're going to pick up something new, you must first put down the things that you're already carrying. And you must let go of them. You've got to put them down and leave them behind. I'm moving out of the place that I'm in right now, and so you know what moving out means. It means filling lots of black
boxes with miscellaneous stuff.
Right. I just honest truth. Yesterday, I was going through the cupboard, and there's this shoebox. Right. I open up the shoebox, and there's these pictures of. These old photos. Do you remember photographs when they were actually
like physical ones? Yeah, I do.
Right. So there's all these, physical photographs, and not only that, letters. Believe it, letters. Handwritten letters. And I'm like, do I take it with me? What do I do with this stuff? I mean, nobody knows them. Nobody cares. I haven't opened the box for years. What the hell do I do with it? So, and this is what's visible, right?
Yeah.
Think about what's invisible that you carry with you inside constantly.
Oh, yeah.
This is a giant. It's like sometimes I see people walking around outside, and it just looks as if they're carrying such a heavy weight with them.
Yeah.
Like they're carrying their entire past with them.
Yeah.
And you've got to give it up and let it go so that you can become what you need to become.
Yeah.
And every time the direction changes, it's so that you get a new opportunity that you wouldn't have had otherwise. You get to go in a new direction. You get to meet new people. You get to change things that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to change. And that's so powerful. And it's powerful when you realize and look back and go, what if that hadn't happened and everything had just continued the way it was?
Yeah, that could be even more frightening an idea. I think there's also that when you think like that, it's in retrospect outside of the structure that you came from, where you go, wow, I was actually abusing myself. I was actually hurting myself for the greater good, which was only created in my own head. It was something I needed to prove to myself, and no one else was on that same ride as I was. I was on my own damn mission, crushing myself Monday to Sunday because I was trying to prove something to myself. And then you realize, wow, I was a bit damaged. I was a little broken little dude trying to figure it all out. And you're sort of hurt by yourself. You go, damn, how can I have done that to myself? But it's only through being outside of it that you can do that.
Yeah, and then and then it gets even scarier, because we have to realize that what we're witnessing and understanding is the end point of something, not the beginning or the middle, but the end point of something. And if we want, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, if we want to explore it, we have to begin to retrace our steps.
Yeah.
And walk and sort of walk mentally backwards into our past to understand why we took the roads that we took. And it was always because we did the best we could at that time, but with hindsight, it's frightening. Like Steve Jobs says in his he's got that commencement speech, that famous commencement speech. He said you can only understand the past by connecting the dots in the future and looking back.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's so true. Sure, man. But that was cool, man. I'm going to have to head off because it's my bedtime. My son, we all sleep in the same room on the floor together, like that whole spiel. So that's the real deal. But that's really cool. I appreciated the chat. It really did. It's just helped me push over a little domino that I was sort of hesitating, and that you've embodied it. It's always nice just to go, wow, you've actually walked that damn walk. You haven't just talked the talk, and it helps a lot to know that you survive that push into that. You go, cool, this guy did it. I think I can probably try myself.
Yeah. Well, the business article that I wrote 2 days ago was entitled "Walk the Talk." That was what the title of it was. I write one article every day, and here's the goal. Okay, let me give you a challenge, right? Let me challenge you, right? Right. Everybody's got a book inside of them. Small book, big book. It could be one sentence a page. I've got this really nice book about Buddhism, and on every page is just one sentence. It's really nice. It's one sentence.
So Buddhist, so minimalist.
Yeah, but it's so beautiful. Anyway, everyone's got a book inside of them, right? And everyone's got this information and this experience inside of them. If you just take the time to make 1 page of notes a day, just 1 page a day, at the end of a year, you'll have 365 pages. And that's much, much, much more than you could ever put in a book, right?
Yeah.
So write that book, right? Spend that little bit of time. And I know we set the target of every day, and we miss a few days here and there, and that's life, right? Ups and downs. But everyone's got that. So my challenge is that if we're going to leave information for the next generation, right? We've got to leave it in different ways, in different formats, because some people watch video, some people listen to audio, some people read, yeah. And so I think if you're doing that focus on dads, I think it would be great to have not sort of an ebook as a lead in, but real experiences,
absolutely,
real thoughts, and something that can be shared with other people, and just another little thing that you can put out there. And it'll draw people into the right direction. And I think it's good to you worked in the educational industry, so you understand the power of writing and getting things out of your head and down onto paper and organizing that in a logical way. It's very powerful for people. And even if nobody else reads it, all of your thoughts will be clear to you. You will understand, and you will be able to explain them, and that will make a difference.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's something to definitely think about.
Yeah, just think about it. Let it just I can tell you as well that it takes me an hour to implement. No, it's an hour. So it takes me a year to implement anything in my life. It takes me a year.
Yeah.
It just the things go, okay, that's good, and it goes around for a year. It spends a year like incubating and growing and sometimes dying. And it takes me a year to implement anything into my life at all.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Cool, man. Thank you, Graham. I appreciate it. I'm sure we will chat again, and I will update you as to you will see. I'm sure.
Okay, that's cool. Hey, thank you very, very, very much for an enlightening chat. And I know you've got a lot of experience, and I know I talked too much today, so I'd like to apologize for that. But
not at all. Not at all.
Maybe next time we can go through a little bit of your experiences as a father. We can go through a little bit about education and your perspectives on that, and we can share. And
awesome, man. I'd like to do that. Thanks again, eh?
Done. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. You have a really, really great evening, whatever it's going on.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Thank you so much. You too.
Okay, take care.